Hi guys, how are we doing today? Just wanted to kind of talk a bit about grief, really, and sadness, and ever since I was young, I've felt the weight of the unfairness of the world, the inequality of everything, the imbalances of power, and the sheer quality of life based on how much money you have or you don't have. And how all of that plays into, in many ways, the person you grow up to be. The child you become, the teenager you become, the adult you become. And how that sense of unfairness, that sense of nobody really cares about my city, my area, bogs you down. How that really messes with your sense of place in the world, your sense of what's is there any real fairness? Is there any real morality in this world? Is there any real justice to be found? And when you grow up in an area where you sense that stuff, you sense that there's nobody around to really look out for you, that you're on your own, and you have to deal with the consequences of growing up in that kind of environment where essentially people are law unto themselves, that they are living out a life that they don't care about the consequences of. They don't care about the impacts on those around them, because they also sense that there's no real fairness and justice, and so they become essentially they become the very things that they protest about. They become the very things that they despise, just on a lower socio-economic scale, really. And that then feeds into people's behaviours at school and outside in their communities, and how they don't respect people, don't really care about other people's considerations, and people just become kind of ruthless and just lacking in empathy and compassion and understanding and respect, and just never really developing any real boundaries. So I suppose when I was young, I always kind of felt like I've always really kind of felt on my own. I always felt this sense of grief about life and about humanity, and how unjust and unfair it really truly is when you really open up and be honest about it. How many people are dying right now? How many people are being told they've got incurable illness or terminal illness right now? How many people have got weeks, days left to live through no fault of their own? How many people are starving to death, malnourished, don't have enough nutrition, don't have enough access to clean water. It's just a very dark reality. It's a dark world out there. It really is. A very depressing world. I don't know. Sometimes I just kind of just feel really sad about the way everything is, and it just kind of bogs you down. And I try to think positive. I try to remember good times, and but if I'm being honest with you, I mean, I don't really have that many good times to look back on. Honestly, it's just been one constant big period of struggle in my life. Honestly, in many ways, it's just been an endless, just bombardment of stress and anxiety and pressure, as it is for most people. It's just, I had some good memories. I have some good memories with my grandparents. Spending time with them, and I had some good memories from school. I was more innocent, more naive about the world, and less clustered with all of this just endless bombardment of just endless depression and anxiety and concern about just everything about life, just everything about being a human being in this just world that sometimes doesn't really just seem to make any sense. We hear a lot about fairness and justice and equality, but what really is it? I mean, we talk about, in the Western world anyway, we talk a lot about these things, and morality and civility and rights and freedoms and personal choices and free will and all that kind of thing. But really, how much of it really is true? How much of it genuinely really is real? Because all we really do is just sacrifice other parts of ourselves for these things. We give up parts of ourselves in order to have these things. There's always trade-offs, and that's in the parts of the world that's supposed to be the most developed, civilized, sophisticated. And sometimes you just see through all of the facades of everything. You just see that how full of shit we really are in the West, and how everything's really just a bit kind of disingenuous, isn't it? And yet we're always told, it could always be worse, it could always be this. And that's true, but it's just a sense that, I don't know, there's just so many things in the modern world, certainly in the Western world, that I think just kind of, at least for me, make me question what the real true intentions are behind things, And even not even so much in the way things are, but the way that people act, the way people respond to things, the way that people respond to and deal with grief and sadness and discomfort, frustration and disappointments. I don't know, it just kind of bothers me sometimes, honestly. There's just so many things that people go through all the time, and we talk about having, we talk about being tolerant and caring and understanding and compassionate. But sometimes it feels like we only really truly exhibit those things when it comes to people, or rather the kind of facade of it anyway, towards people from other parts of the world. But yet, when it comes to our own people, we just don't really seem to care. Like we don't give a shit. There are always these exceptions that, these kind of very stigmatizing, very, I don't know, I just kind of, sometimes I kind of despise being part of the Western world, if I'm honest with you. I just feel that in some ways I didn't really belong to it. I didn't really feel like I appreciated living in the West, but I always felt that it was really very shallow and very superficial and too surface level and too much about putting on a societally accepted suit whenever you go out in public. Whenever you're around people. I don't know. I just always sense this thing of having to just bend to everybody else's needs and their own personal expectations, their own I just always got tired. I always really felt really tired of trying to accommodate people's sense of comfort and what I felt they needed all the time. And I guess in the end, I just really honestly felt like I didn't really have any friends. I didn't really, towards my mid to late 20s, I just didn't feel like, I never really felt that I met anybody really honestly that I really truly connected with in any real meaningful sense. I just never really felt like I'd met someone that was on my wavelength, someone that was like me. And so I pushed people away deliberately because I didn't feel that they were the right people for me. And so for a good 10 years now, probably, I would say, I've essentially been on my own, apart from being married, to my type partner. Apart from that, I'm essentially on my own here. Barely no mates, and it certainly has its advantages in some ways, but it's lonely. It is a lonely existence when you don't have any reason to go out anymore, when you don't have any real reason to make an effort, to keep yourself in shape, you just don't feel like you're living anymore. You just don't really feel like, it's not that not that you have to live for other people, but I think it kind of motivates you to keep working on yourself, to keep, and I think that's what happens is when you no longer have those drives anymore. Those external drives, and they do matter in some ways because they do affect your internal world and your sense of place and meaning and purpose and connections with people, and that I think that impacts your mental health. I think it really is really quite disastrous in terms of your ability to get up and do things and push yourself, and I don't know. I just kind of felt that in the end, I wanted friends, but I couldn't stand them anymore. And I think they couldn't stand me. They didn't like me anymore because I was too deep, too serious, too analytical, too critical of things, looking at things from a different perspective, looking at things through a sort of extreme self-awareness. And I think some people found that really uncomfortable, really difficult to deal with. But I'm not gonna apologise for it, because that's how I've naturally developed as a person, because of the things that I went through as a kid, as a teenager, as a young adult, and obviously since my early adult life, I've gone through various different things, and it's pushed me, molded me into a version of myself that my 20-something version of myself wouldn't have reckoned, probably wouldn't have liked. I'm not the partying type anymore. I'm not really much of a socialising type anymore. Not that I ever really truly was anyway, I suppose, but at least I made an effort. At least I tried more when I was younger. But now I just feel like there's just no point anymore. I don't really care if I never have friends again, to be honest. Even though I want friends, I don't really care if I never do. But with that comes that grief. It's like a part of myself's gone, part of myself died. That I let go, or I had to let go. And it's hard to do that. It's hard letting go of things that you once enjoyed, you once liked, you once thought were going somewhere. And of course, part of this is the way I feel at the moment is because of what's happening. What's going to be happening over the next couple of months with me leaving town, so there's that anticipatory grief thing going on as well. But just looking back at like friendships I had, I used to have good friends, relatively good friends at one time, and they're just one by one, they're just kind of my closest friends anyway, I would say, it just pitted out, it just slowly just became the communication between us became less and less and less, and I guess it was a gradual thing, really. I don't think it didn't really happen overnight for a lot, or some people it did, but and the thing is, I kept pushing, I kept trying as well to try and stay in contact with certain people, but in the end, they just moved on, they changed, they weren't interested anymore. They didn't want to know, because they saw me as a reflection of themselves at a different part of their lives that they don't want to be reminded of anymore. They don't want to reconnect because they're scared of somehow being triggered into parts of their past, or somehow I'm going to be some kind of source of, regression or something. I don't know. It's like just I don't know. But it's just sometimes it just kind of bothers me, and certain memories come up, and I don't know. It just upsets me sometimes that I don't have anyone to talk to apart from my family. But it's like I appreciate that, but sometimes I wish I had real friends. I wish I had, and that's maybe part of it is going back to the UK. Maybe at some point I'll develop friendships again, because I'll be in a new situation, and well, not exactly new, but a new employment situation at some point, I would imagine, and that will then force me to interact with other people, and it's probably what I need, really. I've been so isolated for so long that I don't. I mean, I can talk to people out in public. It doesn't really, I don't find it particularly difficult. But I do find it difficult I find it difficult to be around people who see me as some kind of like vulnerable prey or something, some kind of someone that needs to be fixed, or somebody that needs to be molded to something that they see themselves as being the kind of what they, it's kind of people like to kind of mold you into themselves, and I've always had a problem with that. I've always found that a difficult thing to handle, because I don't want you to change me. I don't need you to give me unsolicited advice and like to try and like twist me into something that you see, that you think is the most effective or efficient way to live your life or to be. It's like, no, that's who you are. That's you. I'm who I am, and you're who you are, and that's it. That is it. Bottom line. Full stop. End of. And when I've come across people that can't accept that just have to try and change you in some ways, I've always fought against it, and it just becomes ugly in the end. And before you know it, the arguments ensue, and it's just not worth it. I just don't want to be around people like that. And so I guess what I'm saying is that I found it very difficult to find the kind of people that I think I would enjoy being around, I would find to be interesting. That doesn't mean that I can't be around extroverts, or let's say more positive types of people, or more affluent, more wealthy, more humorous, witty people. I can, but I think it just always turns into a pecking order dynamic with those kinds of people, and I just don't want to be around that. I don't want to be around that constant feeling of like that constant threat of that constant annoyance of like, where am I in this situation? Where do I fit into this? Who's secretly judging me? Who secretly thinks that they're better than I am? Because of course, like everyone, I've got my own, fucked up insecurities that I'm dealing with and trying to manage in my own ways. And it's like the last thing I want to do is have some, jumped up ego, just just people that are just so full of themselves, that they can't smell their own shit kind of thing. It's like the last thing I want to do is be around those types of people that just always have to put you into your, or need to put you into your place, or feel that they're somehow better than you, superior than you, smarter than you, just more than you in every way, more interesting, more funny. I just can't stand that. I just can't stand that constant thing of like competition with people all the time, and that's partly why I prefer just to kind of be on my own most of the time. I just don't like it. I just don't like dealing with that bullshit. It's like, it's nice to have friends, but at the end of the day, if it's always about competition and who's, this fight to be seen as the alpha in the group kind of thing, or to be seen as at the top level of the hierarchy kind of thing. It's like, I don't know, it's one thing when you're competitive for the sake of gaming or sports or things like that, but to just be part of a dynamic in which everyone's secretly judging everybody and criticising each other, and everyone's trying to feel better than the other person in the group all the time and all that kind of crap. It's just, the thing is, because eventually you end up like that. That's the problem. You end up becoming like that. I don't really want to be like that. I just want to be me. I just want to be just left the fuck alone, to just be left as I am, without you trying to interfere with me and think that you somehow have got this, fucking magical cure for the the inadequacies of my mental world, my emotional world, or whatever. It's like, I don't need. If I wanted to do all that stuff, I would go to therapy. I don't want you as a friend. Going on some fucking ego trip or something, thinking you've got, some scholarly approach or advice for me, when you haven't, unless you actually are a therapist. And obviously that's different. But even then, therapy is not the cure for everything. I would say it's more of just a management approach to mental health more than anything else. So I think in the end, you have to deal with the grief in your own ways. You have to find a way to deal with the loneliness, the regrets, the guilt, the shame, the embarrassment. The fuck-ups, the mistakes, on your own terms. You have to find some way of compartmentalizing things and saying, I'm going to go through this. I'm going to go through this pain. I'm going to go through this turmoil, this suffering, and I'm gonna go through it and learn something from it, take something from it, and then I'm gonna move on. There's no point pushing it away and denying that isn't there. And the friend side of things, that's just one part of it. I mean, it's not just the potential. It's not just the dysfunctionalities of the dynamics of friendships. It's the dynamics. It's the issues at work. It's the issues outside your house. It's the way in which the world operates that makes it easier to just want to stay inside. You don't want to be a part of it. You've seen enough of it. But at the same time you realise that it's you know that you can't just live like that forever. You can't just constantly just hide away forever, even though you want to, because that's exactly what led you to that point. It's the very reason that you shut the world away, that you've become so unable to now deal with that world outside, because you've gotten used to being in a state of dysfunctional comfort, toxic convenience, and the world of the online world has essentially kind of made it so that it's more convenient now to stay at home. It's easier now to stay inside the confines of your own bedroom or living room, do nothing and watch nothing and just kind of doom scroll and just kind of just waste hours, days, weeks, months, years of your life away just doing basically fuck all. Because I've done it, I have done it for years. Just waking up, scrolling on YouTube, going on Facebook, liking some shit you've seen probably 100 times before, sharing the same old stuff, retweeting things, I don't know, whatever it is. And before you know it, it's the afternoon's arrived and then it's early evening, and before you know it, you're heading off to bed again, and it's you think, oh, I didn't do anything today. I've literally done, I've survived, okay, granted, but it's what have I done with my day? It's what have I achieved? What productive things have I done with my day? It's nothing. And just so many years I've wasted my life doing that, just waking up, just staring at my phone or my iPad or my computer all day long, and just not really achieving much, not really seeing any real point in anything anymore, because because you've got no drive, because you've got nothing to work towards, you've got no goals, you've got no ambition, and all of that mental health stuff is feeding into this toxic cycle of you wanting to do stuff but not having the energy to do stuff, and then you feeling guilty for not doing anything, and so you just kind of stay stuck. You become, as I say, a couch potato. You kind of just become nothing. You just become nothing, and you get stuck in this endless state of feeling shit and feeling guilty all the time. And as more time goes by, it gets worse, because then you're realising you've wasted months or years of your life away, precious time, precious years that you can't get back. For me, that's basically what about 8 years of my life, essentially. I've done enough, really. I haven't really done much for the last 7 or 8 years. I mean, yeah, okay, I went to China, I went to Taiwan, I went to Bali, been to Australia twice. Did a little bit of travelling around bordering countries around Thailand. But that's it. I mean, I haven't been anywhere in Europe. I haven't been to America. I haven't been to Russia. I haven't been to Eastern Europe. I would like to see some parts over there, and I would like to travel the world. I'd like to see more of it. But I know that in my current circumstances, I'm never going to get the chance to do that with the minuscule amount of money that I currently get. So it's not going to work. It's not sustainable. Even if I had a full-time job here, it's still not sustainable, because the amount of money that you need to get your non-B and then your work permit, unless you're teaching in like a decent school, even really like a decent government school, or certainly an international school or college or university, you practically might as well just not bother, because you're going to earn at most 30 to 40,000 baht, and so the anticipated grief thing that I'm going through at the moment, I suppose, is it's like I know that I've got to leave. I know that I've got to go back to the UK. I haven't really got any choice, because there's things I want to do. There's things I need to achieve. I haven't even got my driving license yet. I mean, how pathetic is that? Like, I'm 35. I mean, I've got my provisional license, but I never actually did the tests. But I need to go back, because I want to do that. I want to get that sorted. I might go back to college. I might even go to university. I don't know. But, as a mature student. But, the thing is, there's more opportunities there in my own city, as much as admittedly, it's a bit of a fucking dump of a place. But, a lot of Bangkok's a dump, quite frankly. It's not all what you think it is. It's a lot of shit parts of the city, and as far as like work's concerned, there's not really much in the way of improvement and empowerment here, unless you have a master's or like a if you really have like meaningful qualifications here from like Oxford-based like teaching qualifications, or you've got your what is it called? Is it PCGE? I think it's called. Things like that. If you're really passionate about teaching, something you really want to do, then yeah, you'll make it here. You'll make a success of it, and you'll earn relatively good money over time. You're talking probably a good, I'd say 70 to 90,000 baht. I mean, I don't know what that is in pounds, but it must be somewhere around about, I don't know, I'd say it must be probably about 2,000 or maybe over £2,000 a month or something, which is not brilliant, but it's not, it's good money for over here. It's very good money. Trust me, like most Thais don't earn that kind of money unless you're a manager or a CEO or something like that. But so, over here that's a lot of money, obviously, but in the West it's not that much. So, part of me just like thinks to myself, well, there's not really much point in me being here, because I'm not interested in going down the teaching career route. Never really was anyway. It was just more of a stopgap, if I'm being honest. And so for me, I have to now try and figure out where I go from here in life. I have to try and figure out what the new direction is for me. Whether I go into, with my health-based degree, bachelor's degree. I may go on to do a master's at some point. You know, I may try and get into some kind of work within the health system in the UK. I don't know. But if failing that, I mean, if I just decide I don't want to do that for whatever reason, I may end up going into hospitality, or I don't know. It's just kind of some things that have interested me. I've thought about is like hospitality, maybe hotel work, maybe like going into like social care, you know, elderly care, something on maybe youth worker, maybe, or something like that. I don't know, but I certainly want to do something that really helps people. I want to do something where I can interact with people, which is ironic considering that I'm an introvert. But I just want to feel like I want to do something where I feel like I'm making a difference to people's lives, and that's kind of part, I suppose, why I got into teaching, because I felt that might be the case. But I think I kind of just became disillusioned with the whole system of pretty much everything over here, really. The sort of the smoke and mirrors of the education system, the facades of the culture here, the contradictory nature of a lot of the things that Thai people do, and I mean that kind of stuff kind of applies everywhere. But I don't know. I just kind of fell out of love with the place. I don't really feel like I connect with it anymore. I've been here almost 10 years, and for all intents and purposes, I've basically kind of done everything I wanted to do. You know, it's like I'm not interested in scuba diving or doing any extreme stuff. No, it's never my thing anyway. I mean, I've pushed myself more than enough times over here. I've gotten out of my comfort zone. You know, I left my country, did a bit of traveling. You know, lived out my 20s over here, did some crazy wild stuff, I guess, and but that chapter of my life's over. It's gone. It's finished. It's that's a different part of my life. That was a different version of me, really. Yeah, I'm an older, mature person now, and there is that sense of that I have to act like that. You know, there's a pressure to kind of be more responsible and accountable because of my age now. You know, whether that's just psychological or whether it's based in sort of like societal and cultural expectations, unspoken expectations anyway, then maybe it is that, I don't know. But yes, there's just no way I couldn't possibly go out there and act like my 25-year-old self anymore. I don't think I couldn't. Certainly my young, very early 20s. It would just look ridiculous. You just wouldn't suit me anymore, and I'm not connected with that part of myself anymore. I almost don't recognise that version of myself anymore. Really, it's so kind of far removed from who I am now that I don't really know who I am anymore. I just know that I'm 35 years old. I'm in Thailand. I'm married. I've got my family for the most part, and for the time being anyway. And I don't know, I just kind of felt like I've kind of just become lost and confused these past few years. And I think COVID really kicked it off. I think it was such a time of so much reflection and so much like question of what reality is anymore. And I think it probably damaged me a lot more than I realised. It really fucked people up really quite seriously. The lockdowns, I don't know. It wasn't so much because of like the virus or whatever. It was the way that it was handled, and just the fact that the government was so adamant about controlling people and so desperate to get everyone vaccinated, and just this whole virtue signal and culture stuff that started then, and I just kind of felt that like the world was just slowly kind of like digging its own grave since that's kind of how I felt since COVID. I think that we're slowly but surely sort of just one shovelful at a time, just kind of digging our own demise. With the introduction now of AI everywhere and robotics so prevalent and automation, and the fact that just ID, the whole push for ID, and I'm sorry that I mention things again and again and again in my videos. I don't mean to repeat myself, but I guess there's only so much you can say. There's only things you can talk about before you do, inevitably repeat what you said before. But the whole push for ID on whether it's with pornography, whether it's just a kind of national policy to try and push it through, and it's the beginning of the end, I think. As far as I'm concerned, the whole push towards getting people addicted to the online world, to the digital sphere, to social media, to the smartphone, to TikTok, to AI, to the virtual world, to the meta world that will be coming online in the next couple of years or decade or so, or whenever it is. When you think about it all, and the push towards the digital, just everything digital, it kind of just, I was thinking about this morning, it's like, it's really kind of like, when you think about like society and culture, like so much stuff has been so badly damaged, just because of that stuff, and then the impact of like COVID as well on top of it was just devastating. And if there is any society and culture to be had in the future, most of it will play out online, I reckon. And that's another thing that bothers me, that kind of gets to me sometimes, makes me emotional, just how so much of the good things that were there when I was a kid, like the way we used to go out and spend time together and just laugh and joke and just be silly and just find things to do. Like, it's the kind of grief of my lost. It's a grief over youth. It's a grief over. It's the fact that I sense the way things are going, the way that the future is, where we're heading towards, and I just see it as something that's, I don't know, I'm just worried. I'm worried about where we're going. I'm worried about all sorts of things these days. My aging parents, my siblings, myself. What's the next chapter of my life here? If there is any here, or if whatever it is in the UK, if I go back, what's the next? Where's technology going? How long have my parents got left? What happens to my marriage? What happens? Who's gonna take care of my parents when they get older? Who's gonna deal with all the funeral arrangements? It was just bothering me that. Sometimes I just feel this sense of like being ungrateful and not appreciative enough of my parents sometimes. Like it wasn't all bad. There were great moments, great times we had. And we used to go into the market, like this indoor market thing back in the day, and my father there was this shop, this candy shop, this sweet shop that you could get like these little bags of sweets. I think it was like 3 for £1 or something like that. And it was quite, they had quite a lot in them for each bag. It was like sort of like, it was just all sorts of stuff, like sour candy, or these like worm type things, like these egg candies, these like jelly stuff. You had like heart shaped things, pretty much everything, and white chocolate, and like it was amazing, really. And I don't know, for some reason earlier, just kind of that memory came back to me all of a sudden, and it just got to me. It kind of choked me up for some reason. I don't know where it came from. I haven't thought about that in a very long time, so I don't know. Sometimes my mind is so strange. Like I get triggered at such random moments by memories I haven't thought about in years. Of course, it's all there in the back of your mind, in your subconscious somewhere, but it just takes sometimes some weird fucking trigger that just like opens some things up, and you don't realize, you don't think you're gonna be sad, you don't think you're gonna be like, really moved by something. It's so much weird. I wasn't expecting it. It just kind of caught me off guard. It was, I've been having moments like that recently, actually, just kind of been getting sort of a bit choked up about things a bit more, and just kind of just feeling like, what have I done? What have I done with myself? What have I done with my life? Have I been a decent person? Have I really meant anything to anybody? Have I made a difference in anybody else's life? Was I ever really a friend to anybody? Was I ever really a lover? Was I ever really seen as someone worthy, somebody attractive? Was I ever seen as someone that was seen as someone that had potential at one time? Did anybody really truly care about me? Or were they just hoping that they were going to get something from me at some point? So it's this level of like suspicion about people, but at the same time, like, I don't know, I just go through all these like really flip-flopping, like one extreme to the other type emotions and thoughts, and just reminiscing about different things. On the one hand, I'll have something that makes me emotional, the next thing, something pisses me off in the next second. It's like, I don't know. My brain is definitely fried at this point. That's how I feel. I think that's how I feel in my head these days. I'm thinking that maybe that's just what happens when you get older, because you've got so much stuff clogging your mind up. You've just got so much baggage, so many different layers of trauma and disappointments and disillusionment and anger and just rage and fury and passionate frustrations and just endless apathy over certain things, and just the world overall, and it just feels, that's how you feel. You just feel this. You feel crushed under it all. Like you can't think clearly. You can't. There's this mental weight. There's this emotional weight that I think you're carrying around as you get a bit older, and it only gets worse with every passing year, because the more you live, the more life experience you've got, the more that you've experienced repetitiveness of people screwing you over, people trying to play you, people trying to use you, people trying to take advantage of you. Not everybody, no, but enough people to make you think that it is everybody. And so over time it becomes harder to trust people, because you just don't know who's out there, who really is being honest, who's really being decent. Is there anybody? Is there really such a thing as being decent? Is there really such a thing as civility and sophistication and really, does politeness really truly exist? Or is it all just we all just playing into this thing of like what we're expected to do rather than what we really are? It's like, how many of us really are nice people at the end of the day? I can't sit here and truly say that I'm a decent human being in every single way. I'm not. I've been an asshole at times. I've been, a bit of a twat and unpleasant, and I've said some horrible, nasty things at times. I've done some things I'm not proud of. But at least I own up to it. At least I say that. At least I'm fucking honest about it. I've talked to my parents in ways I'm not proud of. I've said things that I'm not happy about. I wish I'd been more grateful. I wish I'd spent more time with people while some people were still alive. And I wish that I'd appreciate my pets when I had them, and more than I did, I suppose. But sometimes it's like sometimes you just have to forgive yourself. You just have to say, I was younger then. I was more naive. Like I didn't have the emotional maturity back then. I do now, because I'm older. I've lived a bit more, and I've had more time to self-reflect and like kind of connect the dots in my head and about who I am, or rather what I am and what I'm not, and what I like and what I don't like. and who I want to be around and who I don't, and what I want to prioritize in my life and what I don't. Because it's so easy to get bogged down with everything. It's so easy to just throw in the towel in life and just say, fuck it. Just say, fuck it, I don't care anymore. Just fuck it. Fuck you. Fuck that. Fuck this. Fuck everything else. I don't give a fuck anymore. I'm just going to fucking just sit in this house until the day I fucking die. It's so easy to do that. And that's what I did. That's what I've done for the past few years. I just basically just said, fuck it, I don't care anymore. I'm not interested. I don't want to know. I don't want to talk to you anymore. I don't want to engage with these people. I don't want to go out. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't even fucking really want to work anymore. And I just gave up. I became a coward. I just basically just said, I can't handle the world as it is. I can't handle being out of my comfort zone anymore. And so I'm just going to sit in this house and rot away and get fat and eat shit and feel like shit because of it. I let my mental health take a fucking 10,000 foot plunge until I reach a point where I can't tolerate it anymore, and I have to make a change before I slit my throat. That's basically where I am now. There's only so much you can tolerate before you do break, and you will break eventually, because everybody does. It's like being in the army. Like they will push you, they will try to break you, and they will break you at some point. But at that point, that's the point in which you then have to decide. Are you gonna be a coward and back out because you're having a moment of weakness, as we all do? And that's okay. It's okay to have a few moments of weakness. It's okay to go through periods of doubt and reflection, and it's okay to just say, I've had enough for a bit. I need a break. I need time to fucking just think and just be away from everything. That's fine. But what you do after that is more important, because you either get stuck in that phase, that stagnant period, which is where my life's been for the past few years, or you reach a point where I am now, where you say, this cannot go on anymore. This can't go on like this, because I can't cope with it. I can't cope. I'm going to either just go out and fucking end up on some missing list, or you're going to find me hanging from a tree at some point. It's like that is the reality of it, because I will not be able to cope with it. I won't be able to live with myself. So there will come a point eventually where you'll just be forced to change. Your mind won't take it anymore. It'll say, you've got to break out of this. You've got to fucking break out of it somehow, or I'm going to collapse and you're not going to be able to get out of it. It's like you have to, at some point, force yourself. You have to fucking become a crane and fucking tie a massive chain around you. Your fucking mind, your emotions, your soul, if you like, and drag yourself out of the gutter, drag yourself up, and somehow, somewhere, dig deep and find something within yourself to give you some, and to find some justification to make that change. It's hard. It's fucking hard. It's hard to. Trust me, it is. And this is not the first time in my life where I've had to make difficult choices and had to confront difficult, uncomfortable truths within myself and my life overall. I've gone through it a few times. But now it's different, because now I'm in a phase of my life where I can't really afford to fuck up. One time, I could have made more mistakes, and I'd probably be forgiven for it because I was young. But now that I'm in my mid-30s, you don't get that pass anymore. No one gives a fuck about you. I'd say once you pass 25, no one cares. You're on your own. You've had enough fucking babysitting by society, at least by probably many people's perceptions anyway. They would say, you've had enough time spent around people that have taken care of you. It's time for you to stand up. It's time for you to act. It's time for you to do things through your own. It's time for you to support yourself. It's a time for you to find a way of coping. It's on you to find a way somehow, somewhere, to take one step at a time, and work up to that run towards that, whatever it is you want to work towards. Whether it is, getting a new job, getting a new career, losing weight, finding a partner, buying a new house, moving to a different country. Whatever it is that you think you need to do to make yourself become more of yourself or become something, then I can't do that for you, and you can't help me either. We can only encourage each other, but that's not enough, is it? It's not enough to say things. It takes real courage to have enough honesty within yourself to look at yourself and say, I'm fucking embarrassed of you. I'm embarrassed to be that. I'm embarrassed to be that person. I'm ashamed of who I am. I'm ashamed of the fact that I'd let my emotions ride all over me like a little bitch. I became my mind's my emotional toxicity. It ruined my fucking life. It ruined my ability to get up and do anything anymore. It ruined my confidence. It destroyed my resilience to get up and keep trying. That's on me. That's my fault. Just as it is yours, just as your life is your problem because of the mistakes, the things that you did or didn't do. But do you know what? I can respect that. I can respect people admitting that it's on them. It's like, it is my fault. It is my problem. And I have to, maybe with some support, get out of it. It's like, I'm not saying that you can do everything on your own. You need some support sometimes. But at least if you can admit it, if you can have the fucking balls to own up to it and say, I fucked my life up because of this and that and the other, and because I became weak and became too... I took the easy way out in life, and that's why I ended up where I am, because I decided to prioritize convenience over growth. Because growth requires you to be uncomfortable. It requires you to do new things, to be around people that you might not always like, that you don't want to always be around, in situations you don't want to be in. But you've got to be in sometimes because and without those things, there isn't anything else. You can't have the moments of comfort and real peace and contentment without the other shit that goes on in life, I think. It's good to have your own space. It's good, but it doesn't mean anything if you've got nothing. If you've got nothing to compare it to, if you've got no frame of reference. It doesn't matter how nice your home is, how comfortable you are. It doesn't mean anything. You need those extremes. You need the relationship between things that you want and you need. You need to have that relationship between comfort and discomfort, and just accepting that trial and error is part of life, that mistakes are part of life, that growing, evolving requires you to admit to yourself that you're worthy of something, that you can do something, that you have to believe that you have a future ahead of you. You have to see it. You have to really believe that something is out there for you. If you can just adjust a few things in your life, and you can make that change. You can have a better life for yourself, but it will be fucking hard. I'm not going to sit here and say that change is easy. Yeah, fucking hell, by God, trust me. It's like the amount of procrastination I've spent over the years is shocking. I should be in jail for it, honestly. But at least again, I have the fucking courage to say I got lazy. I got unmotivated. I just didn't care anymore. I just stopped doing anything. I just stopped everything. That's on me. So we're going well wagging the finger around, looking for someone else to blame. And again, there are other aspects to one's life that haven't helped. I'm not going to sit and say that they haven't. Now I've gone through different forms of grief and my own struggles with hope and believing and positivity and optimism stuff. Of course, it's natural, I guess, for someone like me, an introvert, an introspective individual, to ponder on big important parts of life and what it is to be a human being and what's truly real and what's what is and what isn't the truth of the world that we live, the world around us, the wider world, those in our social circles, our family, our situations at work, that the societies and cultures that we belong to, the behaviours of people in the places that we live, the things that people say, why they say them, the things that people do and why they do them, etc. I've gone through many years of very different periods of one form of grief or another. I had it when I was young because of bullying and not fitting into the insecure, vulnerable, egotistically bound or driven or structured dynamics of working class environments or being around working class people for the most part. And that's why I ended up having friends that were older than me, that were a bit more mature, a bit more classy than the average person, I would say, in my where I grew up. But again, that came with its own grief because it was lonely, because I felt like a freak. I felt like the odd one out, and I didn't feel like I was a normal individual. I didn't feel like I really had any real friends, and I still don't. It was a grief of losing my grandparents. There was a grief of losing my beloved pets. There was a grief of when I finished schooling, when I finished college, when I had to leave my jobs in the past. I've gone through all sorts of grief, like we all do. We all have different forms, levels of sadness and disappointment, and unfulfilled expectations and unfulfilled dreams and shattered hopes and relationships that didn't pan out, relationships that didn't even get going. Hopes and dreams that just never came to pass. I've been through it, trust me, and I've gone through my own shit. I've gone through my own hell like everybody else. And I don't say that as though I feel sorry for me. I'm just saying that I understand it. I get it. We've all been through it. We've all gone through our own turmoil and shit and garbage, and I understand it. I get it. And I understand why people fail, why people give up, why people stop caring because of all that, because of it all. And when you reach that point where you just don't see any way out anymore, you just can't see anything but darkness and depression and everything is shit, and it's because you feel like it 24/7, then you just can't see a way out of it. And so it's easier to stay in it. You fall into this trap of you just fall into this cycle, this trap of believing everything that you're thinking and feeling, because you've been so, it becomes a lifestyle, it becomes a way of life, and it becomes hard to break away from, because you think that, genuinely believe that all of that stuff is true. You genuinely believe that you are nothing, that you don't have anything to give to the world, and which is obviously not true. We all have something. We all have some talent or some skill or something, or at least potential to give to somebody or something. But you have to believe it, or at least you have to believe that you have the potential to do something about your life. You have to believe that you have the power in yourself somewhere to be empowered again. That's what gets you up off that sofa for the first time in years. That's what gets you up and pushes you on to things that you've known all along deep down that you can do. Is you have to believe it. You have to believe that there's hope. You have to believe that there is positive change, or at least better alternatives than your current situation. Because without that hope, without that belief, then you'll never ever change. You'll always be stagnant. You'll always be bogged down, and you'll waste 50 years of your life like that. And by the time you do wake up, it'll be too late. Your life's gone. It's finished. It's passed you by, and there's less and less opportunities with every decade that goes by for you. The sooner you can wake up and start making those small little steps, small little changes, is the moment that you can finally start to see something in the distance that resembles a better alternative, a better version of your life. And that doesn't mean that it'll be perfect even when you reach it. Life will always be difficult. It'll always be challenging. There'll always be obstacles. There'll always be barriers. There'll always be things that piss you off and get on your nerves. But at least then you can say, look, well, I've done something here. I've built something, and I'm proud of it. Because there's nothing worse than feeling disempowered and having a complete lack of pride, a complete lack of respect in yourself. Especially as a man, I think, though those things are they're motivation killers. You don't respect yourself. You don't see any potential anymore. You don't see any opportunity for you anymore. You're practically no use to anybody. You might as well just not exist, really. It's like you just at that point you just become another person existing. Just getting by like everybody else. But at least for a lot of other people, like they can if they've developed, they've progressed in some way, developed their life in some way, they can kind of tolerate things a bit more because they've got a job they'll at least kind of like, or a career that they're kind of more satisfied with than the previous ones. And so they can tolerate things a bit better because they're probably earning more money, they can afford to have a holiday. And when you're in a situation where you can't escape those problems, where you can't escape the realities of the world, temporarily at least, that makes it worse. So you have to have a framework in which you can stand up and say, okay, there's things I don't like here, but I can tolerate it because I'm getting something out of it. When you're in a situation where there's no benefits from it, where there's no escape from it, where there's no temporary relief from it, it just feeds all back into itself. It's no good for you. You can't, and that makes it difficult to change. It makes it harder and harder to get up. And the longer you stay in it, the deeper you go, the more difficult it will be for you to climb back out of it. With every passing year that you don't make change, that you don't progress, the harder it will be to change, the harder it will be to become a better version of yourself. Trust me, it gets harder and harder and harder as time goes by. And don't forget, the older you get, the less opportunities are going to be for you. That's just a fact of life. Obviously, the older you get, the less energy you're going to have. The less resilience you're going to have as well. I guess what I'm saying is that it's okay to find yourself bogged down in grief of one kind or another, whether it's because I don't know, you've piled on the weight and your confidence is in the gutter, or somebody that you really loved very dearly has passed away, and that's okay. It's okay to go through that grief. It's okay to experience the different stages or the different emotions, thoughts that come with that. I've been through it myself. I know what it's like. It's not nice. It's not a nice thing to go through for anybody. Even when it's with a pet, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to lose something that you cared about, that you loved, that you cherished, that meant so much to you. Trust me, it's fucking heartbreaking. It's beyond sad. It's beyond even crying. It's a deep existential hole in you. It becomes you lose something of yourself along the way. Like, and I get it, I understand that. But at some point, like, whatever grief it is you're going through, whatever it is that's holding you back in life, you have to find something stronger than that. You have to find something that's bigger than that, I suppose. Something that's worth fighting beyond it, like fighting your way out of it. Whether it's money, whether it's dating, whether it's starting a business, whether it's reconnecting with one of your family or traveling, saving money, whatever it is, you have to visualize that. You have to see it as a real thing inside your head, I think. You have to really, truly think to yourself, that is real. That's something I am gonna get it. I'm going to get it no matter what. I'm gonna reach it. And you have to keep telling yourself. It's not about thinking positive. It's about believing in yourself. It's about you saying to yourself, I'm not going to let these fucking thoughts and emotions ruin the rest of my fucking life. You took enough from me over the last decade or so. Fuck you. You ruined my fucking life, you bastard. You have to have that kind of an attitude and say, you're not fucking controlling me anymore. You're not going to control me anymore. I have power over you. I have control over you. That's what you have to do. You have to twist it around. You have to say, fuck it. No fucking more of this. No more. Because if you don't do that, it's game over. And it's fucking hard. It's hard to get up and try again. It's hard to get up and try and have confidence and to it's hard to move. It's hard to get up and try. It's hard. But remember, it's not just you. It's everyone that's going through their own fucking version of Dante's Inferno, whatever you want to call it. Everybody's got their own fucking misery that you have no idea about. Trust me, there's fucking shit I've gone through that I wouldn't even want to tell you about. I've gone through all sorts of fucking garbage, believe me, like you have. But you have to ask yourself, do you want to change? Do you really want it or not? Are you willing to put in the time and the effort to reach a better point in your life? That's that. And I can't answer that for you. Only you know whether you can do it or not. Or at least you believe you can. Because even if you fail, at least in the end you can say, I got up and I tried to make an effort. Even if I fail again and again and again, at least I can say I kept going. I didn't just throw in the towel. And it is emotional talking about this stuff. It is very, very profound. It is very moving. It's very poignant what I'm talking about here. Because I'm talking about my own life, but I'm in some way I guess trying to motivate other people. Because of my own experiences. I don't want you to waste a decade of your life on practically nothing, achieving nothing, doing nothing with yourself. You don't want to live a life like that. You want to get out there and go and live your life and enjoy what the small little bits of bliss you can find. Grab a hold of whatever bits of if you like positivity or hope or happiness, if you like, you can grab out of life. But you can only do that when you get up and say that they're out there. When you throw in the towel, when you become defeatist, when you just say there's nothing out there anymore for me, then yeah, in your mind, that becomes true. Because and over time you believe it. You believe that is the reality. And you know what? Maybe it is the reality. But unless you give it a shot, unless you try, you just don't know. It's easier to get stuck and stagnant in life. You know, there's people out there that have been stuck in unhappy jobs, marriages, friendships, all sorts of fucked up situations with drugs, whatever, for decades, let alone years. You know, do you want to end up like that? Is that how you see life panning out? I certainly don't. I don't want to become a drug addict. I don't want to end up in jail. I don't want to become a bum. I don't want to become a lazy bonardal couch potato for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years of my life. No way. No fucking way. No way. So I'm going to drag myself out the gutter somehow over the next couple of years and work myself towards something that I can actually be proud of myself of. And that means having to deal with the grief, whether it's through therapy, whether it's through exercise, whether it's through diet, whatever it is, you know, building a social circle again, you know, whatever it means, joining some new clubs, doing some new hobbies, whatever. That's what I've got to do. I know that is what I've got to do. I know this situation as it is not helping me at all. It's not benefiting me or my wife. We both know that. As much as I do like being here and it's comfortable and it's simple, it's because of those very reasons that I have to leave. Because it's not the grounds, it's not the foundations for change. Now, you know, for my wife, that's all good and well for her. You know, she's got her life established here. She's got a house, she's got a car, she's got a relatively stable job. You know, she's got all her family here and everything. So for her, this is her way of life. This is normality for her. But for me, and partly because of the way I think about life, it's not enough for me. This is not enough. I need some drive. I need some motivation. I need to push myself towards something. I need to be a man. I need to feel like a man. I need to feel like I'm doing something worthwhile. I need to feel like I'm contributing. I need to feel like I can stand up on my own two fucking feet and say, look, I am somebody. I am something. I've achieved something. I've done something. And not feel like a loser dependent on other people. That's the worst thing that you can possibly become, really. Because it gets easier and easier and easier to stay in it. All I'm saying is, you know, just don't let grief, apathy, frustrations of one sort or another, you know, endless forms of anger and emotional baggage and trauma just consume you, because it will. It'll eat you up alive. It doesn't care. It will mock you, humiliate you, degrade you, and you will just become its little bitch. And that's what happened to me. That's basically the story of my life over the last 10 years. I became a little bitch. I became a pathetic, weak, cowardly, comfort-clutching little bitch. That's the truth of it. All right? You don't need to become that. Deal with life however you see fit. Whatever works for you, you do that. Right? Whatever it takes for you to get up and change and do things that make you feel better about yourself and becoming something more of yourself, then you do that. Because there's nothing worse than guilt and regrets. I'll catch you on the next one.